It is Tuesday, August 25th. Welcome to the Town Council Committee of the Whole regular meeting. All councilors are present. Calendar and communications. Councilor Bumgar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last week, I chaired a public safety committee meeting, and other than that, nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilor Parker.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilor Franco.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Councilor Heede.
Yes, I attended the public safety meeting with Councilors Bumgar and Borde, and also on Monday attended a discussion to figure out what to do with the Pratt building at the Mystic Oral School.
Councilor Aubrey.
I'm trying to remember the name of the meeting I attended, the garbage meeting.
Scara.
I attended that, and I've got to set up an appointment to go and talk with the director because I really don't understand what all they're talking about. All I can figure out is that we're losing money. So I will know much more at the next meeting. Also, we had a meeting of the beautification committee, and bulb sale had to be changed to October 3rd because the delivery was held up. We're going to be selling bulbs for fall planting. And I know there was something else, but I can't think just what it was at this point. I do want to congratulate Chelsea Bank for their grand opening of their new setup at downtown Mystic Chelsea office. We weren't able to attend, but we're very proud of what they're doing.
Thank you for going on our behalf. Councilor Borde.
Thank you. I attended the safety meeting as it was mentioned by two other councilors. I also attended the fields task group, and I think that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Melendez.
Yes, this Friday at 5:30, the town is hosting a We Have a Dream 2020 event. It's a celebration of the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. It is at the library outside, and space is limited, so you have to register online in order to go, but it'll also be streamed live on GMTV and YouTube.
Thank you. Councilor Zepari.
No report.
Thank you. I attended a Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce subcommittee meeting. They're working on DEI, and I was invited to attend, as well as RTM member Bruce Flax, who I believe serves on the board of the chamber. And it was really a preliminary meeting, but they're looking at involving the Greater Mystic members in diversity training and doing outreach to that community. So if you have any ideas, you're welcome to shoot them over to Peggy Roberts, or if it's easier to contact Representative Flax, that would be great too. Chris Reagan was there, First Selectman Cheeseborough was there, and it's really preliminary, and they're working on how they can better help the community. I just wanted to mention one other thing that just came in. There's an organization that was founded by a woman in Groton, Mrs. Jeanette, and it's called STEPS. And it is an organization to empower young girls. And they are doing a fundraiser to commemorate the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. And it's a walkathon. And if you go to STEPS, STEPS, you can get all the information there if you're interested in helping them out with that. Thank you for your work, Mrs. Jeanette. All right, we are on. Mr. Burt, did you have any communications?
None for me.
Thank you. We're on to approval of minutes. Councilor Bumgar. This is on page 2.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of August 11, 2020. So moved.
Second, Bordelon.
Moved by Bumgardner and seconded by Bordelon. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of 2020-563 August 11th minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are on to 5B, 2020-559, alteration of a scenic road, 1206 River Road. This is on, I believe, page 46. Oh no, I'm on the wrong thing.
I was going to ask that. Are
We
we
are
on the
2020-309. Yes, thank you, Councilor Parker. 2020-309, changes to the town of Groton TIF policy. This is on page 6. So Councilor Parker, please.
I make a motion to recommend a resolution referring the TIF policy changes to the TIF Advisory Committee, the EDC, and to set a public hearing date for October 6, 2020 for the TIF policy amendments. I so move.
Second.
Was that Zepari?
Yes.
Moved by Parker and seconded by Zepari. Thank you. And with us tonight, we have Mr. Reiner, and I believe people from Camoin are here as well. So Mr. Reiner, I'll turn it over to you unless Mr. Burt wanted to take this to introduce everybody.
That's okay. Jon Reiner can take the lead.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Jon Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services. On the line with me tonight is Jim Damicis and Victoria Stores, both from Camoin and Associates. Also, Deb Jones, the Assistant Director of Planning and Development, is on the line, and Eric Callahan, our town attorney. Basically, what we're bringing before you are some very minor changes to our tax increment financing policy. We adopted our original policy back on March 6, 2018, and in the last legislative session, the state of Connecticut made some changes to the TIF enabling legislation, which required some minor changes to our policy. And also when the city of Groton adopted their policy, which they did after ours, in order to keep the two policies consistent, because one of our TIF district master plans is a joint TIF district plan, we wanted to keep our policies the same. Really, the main thrust of the changes that we propose making to the TIF policy are, one, formally stating in here that our TIF Advisory Committee is officially the Economic Development Commission. The council had already done that through our TIF plan, but we hadn't really formalized that within the TIF policy. Previously, when the TIF plan was done, the master plan or district plan for an area, there was a 90-day referral that the Planning and or Zoning Commission had to review that TIF district master plan for consistency with our long-range plan or plan of conservation and development, or POCD. The state changed that to a 10-day referral period. So we're referencing that 10-day referral period for minimum time for before the public hearing. We've also changed just some really grammatical and reference language dealing with credit enhancement agreements and the difference with the city-town kind of use of TIF policies and TIF master planning. That's really about it. Nothing of real substance was changed here that we haven't already discussed or that wasn't necessitated by a change to the state law. Out of an abundance of caution, I invited Jim and Victoria from Camoin onto the call, as well as both Eric and Deb. So happy to answer any questions. It should also be noted that we do not currently have any TIF projects in the planning stage at this point. So these changes would not impact any projects in any way that are being contemplated.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Reiner. Did any of your guests wish to speak, or should we open it up for council questions?
This is Jim Damicis. I think I'm good on my end. John's covered it, so I just want to make sure I'm here to be able to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do any of the councilors have questions for Mr. Reiner, Mr. Damicis, or Ms. Storrs? Councilor Aubrey?
Did you in any way make it so that you can see the changes in here? Or do you have to go back and compare it to the first one?
No, I believe in the document, it actually did track the changes in one of the versions. If not, I will make sure that you have that very document. I thought I had sent the one with the strike throughs in it.
You did. I believe if you scroll to page 26 in the packet, the numbered town council packet from Ms. Hilton, the changes appear in red, I believe, Mr. Reiner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't get that far copy and all of it. I have great confidence in John. I'm sure whatever he's doing is beneficial to our town.
Any other councilors? Oh,
But I'm sorry, be sure to send a credit card to John, though.
Gift cards. They're gift cards. All right. Any other councilors have questions for staff or guests regarding the TIF policy changes? All right. I've asked twice.
I would like to ask a question. What's the reason why you would shorten the waiting period from 90 days to, I forget what it says in here, but you want to shorten?
To the 10 days. So before it was a required minimum 90 days. So the last time we adopted both of those TIF district master plans, we were ready to bring them forward to the Planning Commission, and they couldn't send something to the council for 90 days. So it really held up the adoption process by almost 3 months unnecessarily. So now it has to be at least 10 days beforehand. If they need more time, we certainly can do that. But 90 days was an excessive period of time.
Can
I ask another question?
Councilor Aubrey, I'm going to go to Councilor Borde.
Yep, that's fine.
Back to you.
Just a question about the 90 days to 10. Just looking at it, 90 and 10 there's a big gap in between that. Is there a reason it wasn't 30 versus 20, or what? It seems like a large decrease. So that's my only concern. And is there a possibility that we'd lose some time to really process information with such a quick turnaround, or is the 10 days much more efficient? Thank you.
So I think there's a number of things there. One, I think the 10 days is much more efficient, but that's also just a minimum. So when the council gets a TIF district master plan and they want to refer that to the Planning Commission, they have to give them at least 10 days prior to the public hearing to review it. You can certainly give them more than that. And we just mirrored the language that was actually within the state law. So I don't think anything is lost within that. And if there was a reason that, we wanted more time, we certainly could do that. But that's referral time to the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to the public hearing. And prior to the public hearing, there already would have been substantial review by our TIF advisory committee. So, there's a lot and the council. So there's already a number of bites at the apple. And then, the purpose of the public hearing is to actually get the input from the public on the finalized document before it's finalized and adopted by the council.
Councilor Aubrey?
Oh, dear. Went right out of my mind.
Do any other councilors have questions or comments? Councilor Borde.
Yeah, just one more question that I have here in my notes. So with the shortened time, the community will be notified in that time before we move to the next step. So if we shorten it and move things quicker in 10 days, how will our communication change, making sure information is out in time for people to review it before it moves to the next process? That's so the community at large is able to access the information as well.
So again, this referral is to the Planning and Zoning Commission for them to review the TIF District Master Plan for compliance with the POCD. This happens prior to the Town Council's public hearing. So it's still very early in the process, and the public hearing is really the mechanism for us, staff, and the council to get input from the general public at large on the kind of the final draft, which can always be changed prior to adoption of that TIF District Master Plan. So all this does is help speed up the process between the time staff and the Economic Development Commission, serving as the TIF Advisory Committee, finish the plan to when we can actually really start getting formal public comment.
Thank you.
I know what my question was.
Councilor Borde.
I was just wondering if you've had anybody come close to being interested in using it, or are we still in the infancy?
I think we're still early in the process for this, but I think we've said all along we expect the development at the Mystic Education Center to utilize tax increment financing. We still have spoken to some developers in the downtown Groton area about it, and I think as we see more happen within down in the city, there's certainly the possibilities of it. But I think right now the first area we might see something happen is probably the Mystic Education Center.
Thank you. Somebody's got to mute their phone. Who's got kids running around? John? You're muted.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any hands. So then we will vote on 2023-09, changes to the Town of Groton TIF policy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? So moved unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Reiner and Mr. Damicis and Ms. Storr. So we appreciate you coming out this evening.
Thank you.
All right, now I believe we are on to 2020-559, alteration of a scenic road, 1206 River Road. And this is on page 46. And I believe we are on Councilor Franco.
Yeah, thank you. Make a motion to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing to solicit public input regarding the alteration of River Road. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Franco. Aubrey, was that Aubrey?
Yeah.
Seconded by Aubrey. And Mr. Burt, is this Mr. Hanover's with us for this?
I'm thinking it's probably Deb Jones. Is that right, Deb?
Yes, that's right. Good evening. 1206 River Road, excuse me, is a 19-acre piece of property on the north end of River Road. It has a driveway currently on River Road. The property owner, Mr. Paulantoni, plans to split off 4 acres, and that existing driveway will serve that new lot. So Mr. Paulantoni needs to create a new driveway out on River Road, and that's what is the subject of this request.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. And the maps are on pages 48 and 49, if anybody needs to refer to them. There are also some photographs in there as well. Thank you for coming out this evening, Mr. Paulantoni. And do any councilors have questions about this particular item? Councilor Aubrey.
I'm just wondering if we have anybody that, or maybe Deb could, Ms. Green, could talk to us about what you can or you can't do on a scenic road.
So essentially, you can do anything on a scenic road in the right-of-way, provided the council approves it. This ordinance was put in place to protect the stone walls, the large trees, the things that make it a scenic road. So I think your chore is to look at what the disturbance is that Mr. Paulantoni is proposing, and determine whether it's going to detract from the scenic qualities of the road. I think you can see in the letter that he sent to you, he's not removing any stone walls. It's some small brush and some small saplings.
What would your recommendation be?
I think it's a 19-acre piece of property. He's only going to have 2 driveways out there. I think, take a drive by before your public hearing. As long as he, adheres to the standards that Public Works is going to impose in terms of the construction of the apron and sight lines, I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Thank you.
So this resolution recommends a resolution to schedule a public hearing. So we're going to be coming back to this first town council in September. We'll actually set the public hearing date. And then I believe, Mr. Burt, the public hearing wouldn't actually be until the first Tuesday in October. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll be doing 2 public hearings that night on the TIF policy on Scenic Road, I believe.
Okay. Are there any questions from council at this point on this particular item?
Comply with the.
And I don't see any hands.
Sorry.
Councilor O'Brien.
I'm the only one here with you.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yes, is this Mrs. Paulantoni?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for coming out tonight. What can we do for you?
So I'm curious if in our letter, we cited the article that the ordinance that covers the driveway, and we are completely complying with that ordinance. I'm wondering why a public meeting is necessary.
And I will let this go to town staff. Ms. Jones, would you like to?
Certainly.
How this works?
Certainly. It is a requirement of this ordinance. It specifically states that no work is going to take place in the right-of-way until the town council holds a public hearing on that request and makes a decision. It's in the ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any counselors have questions? Councilor Borde.
Thank you. Is there any decision made as of yet as to what type of material will be used on the driveways or at the entrance way that's at least on the road?
This is Deb Jones. Public Works will certainly require a driveway apron, an asphalt driveway apron here. And I think the Paulantonios can speak to what type of material they're going to use for the rest of the driveway on their property.
Our plan right now is to mimic the rest of the driveways that exist on the property. So the apron aside, whether it be asphalt or cobblestones, the remainder will be crushed stone.
Thank you.
And we're trying to keep the whole look of it as natural as possible, like every other driveway on the road.
Thank you. I can appreciate you guys considering the cosmetic view of that and keeping the naturalness of it. And
yeah, we took a drive down, south on River Road and back again north, and took pictures of almost everybody's driveway to get a sense of, okay, well, what should this look like? And when we looked at what we have currently, was like, well, why don't we just mimic what we have? Maybe, make it a little. So the problem with what's there now at 1206 River Road is that the gate itself is very close to the road. So it's very difficult for large vehicles to access through the gate. So we would move the gate in on the property about 5 feet more. So we'd be about 15, 18 feet off of River Road. That's where the gate would be.
thanks for the clarification, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Franco.
I'm sorry, I lost connection. I had to reboot my computer. This is a motion just to set a public hearing, will this be at the next town council meeting?
We would be, let's see, we have to vote to set the public hearing at the council meeting in September. So our first council meeting in September, we will formally vote to set the public hearing. Then the public hearing would be, I just asked Mr. Burt this, the first Tuesday in October is when the actual public hearing would be. So there's time for the public to actually take a look around and ask questions if they need to.
Thank you.
Smile. The girl.
Okay, anybody else? Councilor Aubrey, did you want to say something else? No?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
All right, so seeing no questions, we will vote on 2020-559, alteration of a scenic road, 1206 River Road. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Jones and Mr. and Mrs. Paulantoni.
Thank you.
All right, we are on to Councilor Heede for 2020-565 FYE 2021 CIP Fitch High School Athletic Facilities, please, sir.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll make a motion to recommend a resolution authorizing the approval of the fiscal year ending 2021 capital reserve project entitled Fitch High School Athletic Facilities for paving of the tennis court pathway and refer the matter to the RTM. I so move.
Second, Parker.
Moved by Heede and seconded by Parker. Okay, I'm not sure.
I can give the overview of this.
Thank you.
Okay. In the FYE 2020 capital projects budget, project 5I, that's to resurface the Fitch High School tennis courts. It was budgeted in the CIP at $300,000, but the lowest bid came in at $356,000. The Board of Ed did approve an allocation of an additional $56,000 out of their own operating expense to cover the difference. But while the work was ongoing to pave, they realized the pathway between the courts really needed to be paved. And the thought was it'd be cheaper while they're mobilized there doing the other paving to get it done. They received an estimate for $12,500. They went ahead and had it done, so it's been accomplished. That pathway has been paved. And just of note, it's not a direct tie-in, but the Northeast Academy Air Quality project came in at $40,000 less, and they are turning that money back. That'll be returned either way. But what the Board of Ed is asking is that there be a 2021 capital improvement project in the amount of $12,500 approved to fund the court pathway. So they're asking for a brand new project to do that pathway, which has already been done. And just to let you know, that what they indicated is if the money is not received from the capital projects budget, they would take it out of their Department of Defense funds.
Are there questions from the council? I think you all received a letter in your packet from Dr. Grenier explaining what Mr. Burt just recapped for us, for the public. Councilor Borde.
Thank you. Looking back at the original quotes for the air quality report for Northeast Academy, if my memory serves me correctly, and the research that papers I pulled from that, there were multiple steps to completing that project. So I guess a question I have is the $40,000 that's being returned is part of one of the phases. The whole project is not complete yet, correct?
Correct. It's part of phase one, but you need to do a new allocation for future phases.
Right. Okay. And so wouldn't it would not be appropriate to keep that $40,000 towards the air quality improvement? Is there something else? I guess we don't have the Board of Ed here tonight to speak to it, but I guess I'm curious as to what the next step is, and is that $40,000 important to be allocated for the next step of that project versus reallocating it into this? And not saying I'm not in support of the 12, but I'm just thinking that maybe additional money would be considered as well. So the 40 stay in the funding approved for the air quality. I don't know.
Well, just to make it clear, the $40,000 is going to roll back into the capital projects fund balance either way. It's really not taking it out of that. They're just mentioning it. So no matter what, it's going to go into the fund balance. And then when you go back to budget the next stage, you'll look at that fund balance again. They're asking out of fund balance. That's really not necessarily just that out of that $40,000. It's just out of any fund balance for the CIP dollars for $12,500. So they're really not tied in. They're just mentioning it, to make it look more attractive.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I think it'd be important to consider that when we start to look at all the different air quality things, because some of that other requests coming down the road probably could come in higher. And so knowing that this 40,000 was returned would just be an important notation. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed.
Councilor Franco.
So I have a question as to why this wasn't included in the original package to begin with. If both courts were going to be repaved, and this is just simply for the pathway that goes between them, is that correct?
Correct. And they just didn't, according to Dr. Grenier, it never occurred to them until they were already paving the courts and realized, oh, that really needs to be paved too.
Mm-hmm.
I can't answer beyond that. That's just what I was told.
All right. Thank you.
Any other councilors have questions or comments?
I think it's a good idea if it looks nicer, and it's a little hard to play tennis if you got mud on your feet.
And just to mention again, it has been paved at this point. It's just a question of whether it's going to come out of CIP fund balance or to go for the Board of Ed to take it out of Department of Defense.
I think it's a good idea.
1 second, please. Councilor Melendez, did you have your hand up just to be moved back over into the meeting, or did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, my call just dropped and then I had to come back in.
Okay, very good. All right, so, all right, Councilor Borde. And then Councilor.
One more question for the town manager. Looking at our fund balance and the reports, is this something that is appropriate to fund at this time?
Yeah, it could certainly handle it. It's a minimal amount of money. I believe we have around $1 million fund balance if I recall correctly.
And thinking of the restorations, I know there was a CIP for the sports field. And I'm wrapping this in. I know it's a separate issue, but it's pulled together. I will come full circle with it when I complete what I'm saying. Is that moving forward, or where do we stand on that?
Remind me again, which item?
There was the money to cap the football field, the CIP that had gone before us.
Yeah, I don't have my budget book in front of me. Hold on a sec.
Because I'm just curious.
Was that for sure? I forgot. Was that because there was some talk of waiting to figure out whether there was turf. Did it for sure get approved? Ms. Landry, do you remember offhand? Or does anybody else remember for sure? Because I was thinking it got delayed because of discussions of turf and other things, that they wanted the athletic fields committee to complete their work first, but I might be wrong. Does anybody remember? I don't have my budget book here with me.
Okay, I just, I know it was, that's what I'm asking. It's a little confusing. I know there was a lot going on, and then it was in the midst of COVID, so we kind of, but I just didn't know if that had come in or been thought of, or had they started getting any quotes on it in the meantime to see if there would be any extra funding there as well. So
not until the material is determined.
Okay, so that's still in the works, and it's still kind of at a hold then.
Right.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, we have Councilors Heede and Franco.
Yes, I hope this question is relevant, but I know that there may be extra funding I'm just looking, what are the possible sources of funding that we could have? Is it only from our CIP balance? So is there extra funding in the building of the middle school? And
that this would not be eligible for that funding. Okay. That's specific to the middle school.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, it's raining and I needed to close the window. We have Councilors Franco and Zepari.
I just wanted to jump in, and maybe my memory of what had happened was that football CIP was not funded, and there were some items for the schools, and Dr. Grenier had picked out what he thought were priority, and the tennis court was the priority, so that's why this had been funded. And I don't recall him saying that there was anything else that he thought was a priority at the moment, so nothing else had been approved for actual fields at that time.
Right.
And Councilor Zepari.
I am in favor of this motion, and I'd like to say that first because there's some negative things that I would say about it. I think we would not like to set a precedent for departments building something and then coming after they've built it to tell us they need money for it. Generally, if they want the town to pay for it, they should present their proposal to the town council and have the money appropriated before they start building. In this case, it's a very small amount of money. It was appropriate to repave the pathway between the courts, and I'm in favor of it. However, I don't want people to start thinking, hey, that's the way we do business.
And by the way, I did pull up the budget on CIPs. If anyone's, the 4 items we did for the Board of Ed was district storage, the Northeast Academy Air Quality Video Surveillance System, and then the school kitchen dishwashing equipment. So just as a refresher.
Thank you for checking that. Do any other councilors have comments or questions? I see no other hands. So we will vote on 2020-565 FYE 2021 CIP Fitch High School athletic facilities. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we are on to 3 items that are referrals, and this is 5D, E, and F on your list. And the purpose of having them on the agenda tonight is for Councilor Zepari to present his thoughts, and for the others that also wanted the referrals to present their thoughts. And then the goal tonight is to prioritize these 3 and to figure out which ones you want to tackle first, because right now I'm not sure that town staff could take on all 3 at this moment. But we may want to say, okay, we want to do this one first, this one next, and that one can wait. So having said that, we will go to 2020-434, and there are no motions because this is just discussion at this point. So I will give the floor first to Councilor Zepari, and then I don't recall off the top of my head the other councilors. Actually, I think it was Bumgardner, Franco, Bordelon, and maybe Heede that also wanted this. So then we'll go to you 4, and then you can all kind of chime in with your thoughts on this, and we'll see where we end up. Okay, Councilor Zepari, you're up first, sir.
Yes, this came from an email that I sent to the town manager after he had sent out an email to all of us listing outstanding projects that we had to do. I wanted to put these things, there are 2 others following this. I wanted to put them on the list for the council to consider. About 2 or 3 months ago, Councilor Franco sent us all an email saying she thought, and I agree with her, that we should not embark on anything new and expensive at this time because of the pandemic and the economic downturn that it has produced. However, that doesn't mean that we should be quiet during this time. This is a great time for us to plan and prioritize. As far as the bridges are concerned, we have 3 bridges out. We have one which we share with Stonington over in Old Mystic. We have another, I think Mr. Burt told me we've already appropriated money to repair that out in the north end of town. I've forgotten the name of the road. And we have a third, which is dear to my heart because I'm now living down here. It's the Groton Long Point Bridge, which I cross at least twice a day. The Groton Long Point Bridge was damaged in 2011 with Hurricane Irene. And there's been a lot of talk and a lot of planning and nothing done ever since then. And I think that we should bump it up and we should decide when we want to do it. And if there's more planning to be done, let's get it done. But those are things that I'm suggesting that we put in order of when do we want to accomplish these things?
And I have Public Works Director Greg Hanover here. However, I just want to mention for the Groton Long Point Bridge, in February-ish, we locked in people for a committee to further the study of what needs to be put in there. And then COVID hit, so it just kind of derailed it. But I think we're at the point of officially getting together and starting that work. And then in terms of I think everyone's aware of what's going on with the Stonington Bridge, and that some dialogue needs to take place with the town of Stonington. But Director Hanover, do you have anything to add? And can you tell us what's going on with engineering on the Groton Long Point Bridge?
Before you do, please, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
Sorry.
Quaker Farm, where are we on Quaker Farm?
That's budgeted for this year, and Mr. Hanover should be able to tell us what the schedule is for that.
Thank you. Mr. Hanover, thank you for joining us.
Sure. Good evening. It's Greg Hanover, Director of Public Works. The Quaker Farm Road culvert, which is out, we are in the process of hiring an engineering firm. We went out for qualifications, which the department usually does on these larger projects. So we'll be hiring an engineering firm probably in the next month or so. And then we'll be starting the preliminary design and permitting process. This was approved in FY21 CIP for the design and construction. So we're hoping that we can get the plans done over the winter time, permitted in the spring, and then start construction next summer.
Thank you. And could you speak to anything on Groton Long Point Bridge, please?
Sure. As the town manager said, we are just beginning to set up a committee to review some of the design options. When COVID hit, we kind of I wanted to have a face-to-face meeting for the first meeting of this large group. Unfortunately, that keeps getting put off, so we'll have to probably have a Zoom meeting. But in the meantime, we have been working with our consultant engineer, looking at different design options. In fact, I've been talking to him in the last couple of weeks. So we are ready to set up this meeting of this group so we can kind of go over some of the design options we're looking at and go from there.
Thank you. Do councilors have questions or wish to comment on this? Okay, Councilor Zeperi. All right, we've got a bunch of hands that just went up. And Councilor Zeperi, since you already spoke, we're going to go to the others first, and then we will come back to you. So we have Councilor Borde and Melendez.
Thank you. I think the bridges are an important issue, and I think it is important that we start to look at some of these, in particular the one in West Mystic, Old Mystic area that's butted up with Stonington. I know at our last budget cycle, if everybody remembers that meeting all day, we did discuss that we would be, or a suggestion had come out that we need to sooner than later come before Stonington and invite them and have a discussion, I'd like to say roundtable, but unfortunately probably be more like the Brady Bunch Zoom meeting discussion where we all look on our computers. But I think it's important that we start that now, because before long we'll be rolling into Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, the peak of the COVID season, followed by winter cancellations and other issues that may arise. And then we'll be deep into the budget and possibly trying to go through it again, distantly, possibly depending on how COVID is going on. So I think it would be important. I think as far as the Mystic one, I would like to see that a meeting happened and sooner than later, hopefully in the next couple months. I don't know that the council necessarily has to have a decision made as to where we all necessarily stand, but an informative meeting where we discuss what are their intentions, what are their thoughts, councilors can think about like what we're doing, and kind of just see the direction of our neighboring town. I think that would be a great option to start to do that. And I did, in reference, I know Councilor Zeperi had sent this. I too had sent something recently when we were asked to write a letter in support of something for Stonington, on the Stonington side, the boathouse project. It sparked my memory with everything going on that we should have that discussion with Stonington as well. And in their letter, they had stated that they were interested in coming to speak to us if we were interested in talking about it, which I thought was great. And then it made me think, well, what about the bridge? And despite if we have enough votes to move it or not, I think it is important to see what their intentions are moving forward in the upcoming budget season and start working out those kinks and meetings now so that we're ready and prepared when we're, faced with the challenge. And as far as the other bridges as well, I do remember the presentation up at the town annex where everybody was invited, the public came out and they had all the different boards up of the different design bridge with a walk path, with a sidewalk without. And so it is good to get back to that old business and start thinking about that. And it seems like, things have gotten busy due to life and COVID. So it'd be important to revisit that. And so, yes, I could see where we need to start to bring these before discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Melendez and then Zepari.
Yes, I just want to just state where I stand for the Mystic Bridge. I think that I will be supporting funding the bridge whenever it comes back. If that's in the next budget meeting, budget session, I will be supporting it then. I feel like a lot of us didn't support funding this bridge this time because, it was the pandemic year and we wanted to, cut the budget significantly, and we didn't even believe that Stonington would fund their side. And I think that's fine for a pandemic year. But in a normal budget year, I think we should, if we support funding the bridge, we should fund the bridge and leave it up to Stonington. As far as the Groton Long Point Bridge, I will almost certainly be supporting the recommendations from the committee and how they feel about it.
Thank you. Councilor Zepari, I'm going to go to councilors who haven't spoken yet. So I'm going to go to Councilor Heede, and then I'm going to take a turn.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would agree it's important to fund these infrastructure projects, and as I've learned a little bit more about the Stonington Bridge, I would be supporting it in a normal budget year. The question that I have is next year going to be a normal budget year? So I think, the question remains whether or not, what happens to the economy, what the state funding is, all that, in terms of whether or not next year becomes the year. But I think it needs to be done. And I don't speak for the council, but I think that most of us here would agree that for safety reasons, it needs to be done, if nothing else. So I think it should be a priority. And obviously, as soon as the town comes forward with a plan for the Groton Long Point Bridge, we should proceed with that as well.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in. Then we have Councilor Bumgar and Zepari. Of the three referrals that Councilor Zepari has put forth, I believe this is the most important one to tackle right now. The reason being we have these three bridges that are out, but in addition to that, we need to come to a decision about how we're going to be funding road repairs. We have the road study that is done, and we need to make the choice of whether we're going to be funding things through CIPs on a pay-as-you-go kind of thing, or if we're going to go for a bond again. And that's why I would like to kind of have this discussion first, because if we decide we're going to bond, it seems like it might make sense, and I don't know, I would yield to Finance Director Landry on this, that, perhaps do one bond for the bridges and for the roads, if that's the way we choose to go. But before we can get to that point, we at least have to have the discussion about this particular infrastructure. So my preference, if we're deciding which of the three we want to tackle first or what priority order, I believe that we should tackle the bridge repairs first because they are vital infrastructure. And I agree, I would be in favor of, well, we don't have to get into the specifics now. So we will go to Councilor Bumgardner next, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to agree with much of what you just stated. I think moving forward, out of all three agenda items that Councilor Zepari proposed, I'd say, this item is the best going forward. So I'm in full agreement with Councilor Borde on that. The earlier we can meet with Stonington, the better. Invite them to the table and really start those discussions and try to see where they stand on the bridge. I know at last, just last that I followed, they were very hesitant to support funding the bridge in the future. And they even allocated money to permanently close it. So I think that just indicates the earlier, we engage Stonington and start fruitful discussions, I think, the better off it will be for both the taxpayers and, and public safety on both sides of the river as well. With that, I will yield the floor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Zeperi, we're back to you.
Repairing the bridge is a matter of safety and a matter of keeping our commitment to the people who pay taxes in the town. We should maintain the roads and the bridges. But that's not why I put this up. This is something that's come before us before, and we've sort of kicked the can down the road. And certainly the Groton 1 Point Bridge can has been kicked down the road for 9 years now. But what I wanted to bring this up for is so that we could put it into a scheme of all of the things that we have to do, and then say, okay, we want to do this one first, we want to do this one second, and so on. I don't think we can tax the people to the extent where we can do everything that we want to do at once. We have to spread it out over a period of time, and that means prioritizing our projects. And these are 3 things that I brought to the attention of the council through the town manager. But there are several others that the town manager had put up before us and asked, and I responded to that, have I left out anything? I think we should put these projects in the context of all of the things that we have on schedule, try to get a price tag for each of them, and then try to figure out ways that we're going to do them. As far as, I'd also like to comment about an idea of bonding. I think bonds are appropriate for one-time expenses. But when we have an expense that occurs every year, that is road repair, I think we will, as we bond for it, we get the money, but the taxpayers have to repay it and repay it with interest. At the same time, those payments are being made over subsequent years. We're paying for other road repairs. And so it builds up. We're paying every year to repair roads, but because somebody somewhere way back decided to bond for it, we're also paying interest on that money, and that's kind of silly. I think we have to back it down so that we pay the road repairs out of the current budget for the time, and one-time expenses like building bridges, which are big ticket items, are reasonable bond expenses. So that's my 2 cents. I knew Leanne would like that.
So we have Councilor Franco, and then I'm not sure if Councilor Obrey had her hand up, and then Councilor Baumgartner.
Thank you. I think the bridges are an important topic as well. This is something we have discussed these in the past, and Groton Long Point has been, we've worked on this slowly, but it's being worked on. And from what I recall, this is a multi-year project, and it's not something that happens really quickly. Quaker Farm, as we were told, it's in the works, and the Old Mystic it's been going on for a very long time, and I agree at some point we need to hopefully have a sit down with Stonington and actually discuss this and find out what their future thoughts are on it. And before we commit to any kind of funding for it, I think, especially, the Old Mystic Bridge, to find out where they really stand. I mean, did they close it? Did they allocate their money last year to permanently close it? Was that their intention? And we allocated money to clean up the area and put up a fence and make it so I guess the area looks better and is more presentable. And was that us? From what I've seen pictures recently, I mean, the bridge is almost, I mean, the railings are taken down, and is this really the point where it's really just being closed? So this is, I think, is something that we should figure out. And I think the future funding is of utmost importance, and our ability to bond is something that I have questions on, and I have brought forward the question of future forecasting for where we stand with bonding and what our abilities are, and the percentages of our bonding and debt in relation to our budget, because we can only go with a certain percentage. And from what I'm understanding, the ability, this ability is left up to an actuary to figure out. And we're still, waiting for an actuary to come back with these figures to see what we can do in the future, because there's school bonding that still has to go into the equations. And I think that is a huge piece of information that we should have prior to even making certain decisions. But I think the Groton Long Point Bridge is a major priority, because it would cut off a whole section of our community if it was downgraded, and it would impact emergency response and many numerous things that I don't need to get into tonight. But the Groton Long Point Bridge, I think, is extremely important, and what our ability to bond and getting that actuary report is of utmost importance, I think. And Mr. Burt, do you have any kind of ETA on when we might receive that?
Actually, Cindy, Miss Landry had just given me a first draft, so I'm reviewing it. And then just mentioning the beams, you had mentioned that the beams are out, and does that just mean we're kind of closing it? When you did the new bridge, it was going to have those beams taken out, so it's just a step that was going to have to be done no matter what. So it doesn't mean anything.
So will the whole bridge be removed? Is that part of the whole process?
I believe so, but Mr. Hanover can answer better than I.
Yeah, I mean, Public Works staff went in about a month ago and removed the steel beams that were left between the two abutments and the concrete rails on the sides of the bridge, just for safety reasons, so that kids weren't trying to walk across the bridge there. So the abutments are still there, but the bridge itself is completely gone. And as the town manager said, that would be done anyway, when we put a new bridge in. So the only thing we have left to do is we're going to be putting in, taking out the Jersey barriers on our side, putting in some wooden guardrails and a nicer fence, just to kind of clean up the area for the residents that live right there. And that was all, part of the CIP that was approved this past spring.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if the bridge was actually going to remain and we were just going to clean up the area. I didn't realize the whole bridge was coming out at that time. So that's information, I think, pertinent to knowing what's going on in the area. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilor Obrey, you haven't spoken on this. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest that I think for these different items, we need to have work sessions on them, so that we can really just have that, each one at a time, have that the main subject, have the people that we need after we've given it some thought. But it's very difficult when you have an item like this and you start talking about it. It's good to begin the conversation, but then we need to get into the real nuts and bolts of the project. And you can really only do that in a work session.
I completely agree with you. And what we're doing tonight is trying to decide what the council, which one the council wants to pursue first. And it sounds like very many of us are interested in the bridge. So I want to go to people who haven't spoken yet. So we're going to go to Councilor Melendez next.
Yes. So for the bonding, as a general rule of thumb, I would agree with Councilor Zaparia. I would be against bonding for for roads. Is part of this deciding which Groton Long Point or the one in Old Mystic, which one we're going to do first? Is that what we're discussing?
No, we're trying to decide of the three referrals that Councilor Perry made, which one do we want to add to another agenda? And at that point, then we'll go in depth on the particular bridges.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with the general consensus. I think perhaps the bridges should go first. So yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just to mention, right before COVID, we had formed a committee and have a plan for the Groton Long Point Bridge. Until you get that design and cost, there's not a lot more that can be done until that committee does their work. And Quaker Farms is taken care of. So really it leaves the Stonington Bridge.
Right. Yep. Councilor Borde.
Thank you. That's what I was kind of gonna fish to say a little bit, is that we had that big, public hearing with all the diagrams, and we already started the process on that Groton Long Point Bridge. So it's just now waiting for, the documents and getting the committee rolling, I guess. So I feel like we do have a pulse on that. And then the other bridge, as was stated, is already in the works. And so it does leave the Stonington Bridge. And I agree that the bridges would be a priority for me over the other two agenda items at this time. And then it was already stated, but in my mind, I was thinking, when we voted on the cleaning up the area at the Mystic, the Stonington Mystic Bridge, the beams, as Mr. Town Manager Burt had stated, is the reason we funded it as such is those beams had to come down, so that cost is not lost cost. So that's important to know, that the process of what we did there was also starting the process of what would have had to be done to build the bridge. But I had one other question, because I've gotten a lot of different questions about, or thoughts, and it might be for the town manager. And if he can't answer today, then we can move it to the working group or whatever that happens. It's my understanding, if the town of Groton had all the funding that we wanted to have in the perfect world, we can't even fully fund that bridge, correct, through the state restrictions? So if Stonington decided, nope, we're not funding it, and we said, hey, we're going to do the whole thing straight across because we feel we need it, we can't even do that.
With an agreement with them, we can. We have to have a written agreement with Stonington.
Yep.
But it can be done.
Okay, so it can be done.
That's my understanding.
And it doesn't have to be refunded back from them. They don't have to refund us for our portion that we did for them.
No, but it just takes a written agreement with them.
Gotcha. Okay, just wanted to clear it, because I heard some people say that we couldn't do the whole thing unless so I just wanted to ask that in my thought to prepare for future conversation. And then my final thing was, I think when we look at all the bridges, the Groton Long Point Bridge is probably the most expensive, and it's very important because of the amount of homes that it surrounds. But it is important too, looking at the Stonington Bridge, how long it's been out. And I think it's important, the bridges that are non-working, we need to tackle those because they've been sitting idle for so long. And then moving to a bridge that could be downgraded, but as long as we're moving the work in the committee and getting to the point where we're working towards a resolution on that, which there was one started, I feel we're in the right ballgame before that bridge degrades anymore. But the ones that are sitting there that are not able to be used, that's a concern to me, because we should be trying to catch them before we get to that point. And so I definitely see that Stonington as a top priority. Thank you.
Thank you. The only counselor who hasn't spoken is Councilor Parker. I will yield the floor, Councilor Parker, if you wish to chime in on this.
I agree that the bridges are important until we can figure out what the cost, what everything is going on, and getting all the players involved. I would have to wait on to hear what the next step of the process would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so all counselors have spoken on the bridge referral. So then I would say let's go to the next one and let Councilor Perry introduce this, and then we can all chime in on that as well. So this is 2024-33, extension of sewer and municipal water supply. Councilor Perry, did you wish to introduce this or explain a little bit more about the referral?
There are a couple of personal experiences here. When I was campaigning for re-election last year, I had my little scooter and I would run around the town and go up and down near mailboxes. But if anyone was in their yard, I'd frequently pull into the driveway and chat with them. And when I was up in the north end of the town of Groton, I spoke with some people who said, hey, you know, we pay a sewer tax, but we don't have sewers. Well, the second part of my personal experience is that this year, with the help of Councilor Aubrey, I moved. But in the course of moving, I looked at a lot of different houses around Groton. And I noted that property that had sewer and water, municipal sewer and water to it, was generally much higher, but worth more than property that relied on septic tank and a well. We are in the process of trying to develop Groton, and if we want people to come in and build, I think they have to have infrastructure there. They have to have the sewer and the water in place. I think it'd be nice if we had natural gas. I know last year we put natural gas in 2 or 3 streets in Mystic, but that project wasn't planned for the whole town. But it'd be nice if we had these utilities available to everyone and all the property. I think developers and potential home builders would be much happier and much more eager to come to Groton if they have sewer and water. The second thing that I think of from my personal experience is my medical school days when we looked at different epidemics. And epidemics have occurred when there's been a cross-linkage between what's coming in and what's going out. When sewage gets into the water supply. And when we have septic tanks with leach fields in the same lots with wells, eventually wells will be contaminated. And we know, I have had an experience with a well that became contaminated with bacteria, and it became useless. I think that we have to look at this as a health issue as well. So I think that we should be trying to get municipal water and municipal sewage to the entire town. I know that there are some obstructions in terms of, even I'm told that the Department of Environmental Protection may object to some attempts. But I always think of obstructions as obstacles, as things to be overcome, not reasons to come to a dead stop. So I think that this is an important issue. I think it is an extremely expensive issue, and we're not going to get it done quickly. So it's something that we should plan, if people agree, it's something that we should plan to accomplish over a period of time and do it bit by bit. But I think it's something that we should not keep resting and say, okay, that's just the way it is in Groton. Some people have municipal water and some people don't. I think we should work to correct that. So that means that we'd have to work on planning. It may involve legal opinions from our council. It may involve political action, interacting with the DEP. Whatever it involves, I think it's something that's worthy of our attention and long-range planning. I think it will ultimately, if we decide now or sometime in the next few months that it's something we want to accomplish, I doubt that any of us will be on the council at the time it's finally accomplished. But we ought to put it in the works, and that's what I'm proposing.
Thank you, Councilor Zakari. Councilor Heede.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would echo Councilor Zakari's concerns about the health and the value of having sewer and town water, delivered to homes. But as he noted, it's very expensive. And a few years ago, when I was on the RTM, a proposal to run sewer from basically Mystic Marriott up North Road, Route 117, I think is what they call it. it was a $6 million bonding issue, and I believe it passed the RTM, but it got voted down during a referendum. So I think recently there was a developer also who was coming into town interested in developing a piece of property who was willing to pay for it. Or at least pay for a good chunk of it. And I think that might be the way to go if you want to stretch out sewer and water to different areas of town. Do it in such a way that it's development oriented, so that you have developers that may help cover some of the costs, because I don't think the taxpayer is going to want to do it. Personal opinion based on the referendum going down just a couple of years ago.
Madam Mayor, do you want Mr. Hanover to give a bit of information?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, sure. It's Greg Hanover, Director of Public Works again. Just, a couple things. One is the town has a sewer service area map. This was developed back with the DEE back in the 90s, and also with the State Office of Policy and Management, OPM. It was probably we were probably one of the first towns in the state where they came in because we were upgrading our treatment plant, that they wanted to know exactly where we were not going to have sewers and where we were going to sewer. We came up with a plan, and as has been stated, probably the northern part of the town is pretty much a sewer, what we call a sewer avoidance area. That's not to say we can't go back and, through the politics of it and get it changed a little bit, but right now, those areas are pretty much off limits to us. There are some.
Mr. Hanover?
Yes?
Oh, I think you're going to say what I was going to say. Some of the more populated areas off of 184 do allow for sewer, and that's might be where where Councilor Zapiri is getting, questions. It's the more dense areas in the north.
Correct.
I think you were just pocket there.
Yeah, there's a few pockets on 184. One is in particular Center Groton, which we've had some interest in some developers extending the sewer up Route 117 to Center Groton. Then there's some off Flanders Road and an Old Mystic. Those we could extend sewers to under this plan. As was mentioned, there was a referendum back in 2013 to spend about $10 million to extend sewer and water up Flanders Road to the industrial park that's across from the landfill, and that was pretty soundly defeated back then. There are still some areas in town that we can sewer without going back to deep and OPM, 117 and some areas in 184 and Flanders Road as mentioned, but those areas north of 184 is going to be, which are shown as the green sewer avoidance area, would be, I think it would be a difficult sell up at the state.
Thank you, Mr.
And just to mention on the water, that it's Aquarian and Groton Utilities that control that. So we would just be making a request to them to look at things.
Oops. Thank you. Councilor Borde.
Thank you. Is it possible that, thank you again, Councilor Zapiri, for bringing us forward. I too did hear stuff about the sewage and the, interest of having stuff looked at up in that northern region. When looking at the Mystic Oral School, is there well in that area? Sewage issues in that area, and if there are, is there any extension that could happen when that comes in? That's my first question. And then my other thought too is it'd be great to see those maps, if there's any way that we could take a look at those to see that study from the 90s, just, even though we might not tackle it now, it just would be good to have the information just to see those areas. And I think it'd be helpful to kind of look and see, because one of the other concerns of things I read is we are having climate changes and more storms coming in, and having leach fields and wells connected is a health concern. And as more of those storms roll in, having clean drinking water is going to become, tougher and tougher in some of these areas. So it would be information to consider. And if it is simple and not a huge task, I think it would be appropriate to at least start looking at that map from the 90s and, talking to, as the town manager had stated, it would be, the companies to take a look at it and have them do the work on it and then report back to us if that's a possibility. But are those maps online, or can I have them
Well,
sent?
this is the sewer map. We don't do water. We'd have to talk with the other agencies. We have a sewer avoidance map. It is on our website, but I can just email it to everybody tomorrow. Okay. And you mentioned the Mystic Education Center. I'm sure Mr. Hanover has more to add, but that was studied. It can handle the development. I think there's some mechanisms or mechanics that have to be put in place there, but it does have the capacity, is my understanding. But Mr. Hanover, if you have anything to add.
I guess I remember it having the capacity. I guess my question was, can it be extended if it's being put in? Would it be able to, when a new developer comes in, as Councilor Heede had stated, could it be sent further, down, from
that would be our expense, though. I mean, could we do it? Could you have a savings by mobilizing maybe? But that would be our expense, not a developer expense off their property, unless it's just getting to their property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that the sewer is existing at that site, so they don't have to extend it. And then north of that, you're along River Road, and that is part of the sewer avoidance area. And then along Cowhill Road, there's already existing sewer there. So there's really no other areas north of the Mystic Ed Center that need sewers.
Thank you, Mr. Hanover. We have Councilors Aubrey and Franco.
My questions were answered in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Franco, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I just want to note that it was mentioned that gas had been put in some areas, though not all. And I just want to clarify, this was not put in by the town. This is put in by Eversource, correct?
Correct.
And what percentage of our town has sewer compared to that needs sewer or is lacking sewer?
Mr. Hanover, do you know that, or is that something you'll need to get back to us with?
I would be guessing, but I'm going to say probably 60 to 70% of the town has sewer available to them.
Has sewer?
Yes, correct. Has sewer available.
Okay. And so just let's say the other 40%, and just with, I'm not asking for exact numbers or anything, but what would be your estimate to be able to put sewers in for those remaining areas?
To do the remaining part, the entire town, you're in the $100 million range. I mean, it was just $10 million just to go up Flanders Road, so it would be very expensive.
And when sewer is put in somewhere, there's like hookup fees and things of that by the residents. Is that correct? Can you explain how that works? Do they pay a portion just to have it maybe hooked up to their home, or do they pay a portion of the cost of the sewer to be put in their road or their neighborhood, or how does that work?
Well, there's sewer benefit assessments, which is, it's a calculation that they pay a certain amount of the sewer that goes in front of their house. When they want to hook up to the sewer, they hire a private contractor. There's no actual fee to the town for that connection. Once they hook up, they pay a sewer user fee, which is presently for residents is $34.50 a month. And that's it.
So the cost to hook up to their house to the sewer is a private cost, and they just like finance it on their own. It has nothing to do with the town.
Correct. I mean, we provide laterals up to the property line from the street, and then we cap it. The town does not have a mandatory tie-in requirement, so people are not required to tie in. They can do it whenever, either their septic system fails or whenever they want. And it's a private, connection that they hire somebody privately.
So if they have like a capped pipe coming towards their property, and is that why they're paying a sewer tax or fee, even though they're not hooked up to it?
No, that sewer service area, and probably Cindy Landy could answer this question better than I, but that applies to everybody in town, and that's basically paying for the bonding that's used on certain sewer projects because it benefits the entire town. The cost to put the sewer in front of you, or the benefit assessment, is a different tax.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Finance Director Landry wanted to speak at this point. Director Landry?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to agree with what Greg was saying. The sewer district tax that everyone, almost everyone pays, does go to pay for that bonding to do upgrades to the treatment plant, which benefits the entire town. And the sewer benefit assessments, which, to be honest with you, I'm not even sure we have any. I don't believe anyone pays those any longer. We haven't put in sewers for a very long time. We might have some deferments out there, but that was based over, I'm thinking those payments might have gone for 10 years. And I know the last sewers that we put in, those benefit assessments were quite high. It was very costly to the taxpayer.
Thank you, Director Landry.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
No, I said you're welcome.
Okay. Do any other counselors want to speak to this particular referral? It's looking like it's not as high a priority as the bridges, but let's hold off and let's go to the next referral that Councilor Zepari has, and we can discuss that one a little bit and then kind of decide where we want to go. This is 2024-32 tax abatement for seniors, disabled, and veterans. Councilor Zepari.
Again, going back to my running around on my scooter, when I was running for election the first time in 2017, I stopped off to see a resident of Mystic down on Park Place, and I think I've told you about this before, was Tally Foley. And Tally is in her 90s, and she's living in a house on Park Place where she raised, I think, 6 children. I've known her since I was 13, but I've forgotten how many children she knows. At any rate, her current income is around $38,000 a year, and she has to pay over $10,000 to the town of Groton in property tax. I think there's something wrong with that. She wants to stay in the house that she's lived in with her children and raised her children, but our tax structure is such that we can't give her a break. We have provisions for giving people abatements on taxes. Veterans, I think, get $1,000 off of their total value of house and cars. That was probably a good deal when you could buy a house for $10,000 or $12,000. But now, when houses are costing between $300,000 and $500,000, $1,000 off the tax for the value of the house is really not much of an abatement. And in fact, it's a little bit of an insult to the extent for the service that the veterans have provided. We have even smaller abatements for seniors and disabled persons who have, like seniors, are on fixed incomes and usually small incomes. Are not able to keep their homes because we on the council who spend their money run up their tax bills. And I think that we should look in justice to try to find a way to give meaningful tax breaks to people in the categories of veterans, seniors, disabled. I know when I talked to Portia Bordelon about this idea just 2 days ago, she had some other ideas of additional groups who probably should be considered. But I think that if we are interested in justice, if we're interested in preserving rights for all the people, and if we're interested in helping people who are less well off than most of us, then I think this is one of the things that we should consider in terms of housing for these groups. Again, it's not something we need to do immediately, but I think it's something that we should keep on the list to be discussed in detail in the future.
Thank you, Councilor Zepari. I just wanted to see if Finance Director Landry or Ms. Gardner or Ms. McGuire wanted to chime in on any of the existing programs that we have as far as abatements for seniors, disabled, and before we open it up to the rest of the council.
And just to mention, and they can confirm, but I believe you can only do things that are allowed in state law. You can't create your own new category of tax exemptions. It has to be a program established in statute, but they can go through that.
Thank you. I'm not sure who wishes to speak. Is Director Landry or Assessor Gardner, perhaps? I'm not sure.
Well, this is Cindy. I do have both Melissa McGuire, the tax collector, and Mary Gardner are both on with us. And if you'd like, maybe each of them, the tax collector has two that really pertain on her side, and then the remaining of most of the mandatory and a couple of the local options, or the one local option, are on the assessor side. So Melissa, would you like to start just to give a brief overview of the two local options that are handled in your department?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I have two programs. One is the tax deferral program, and the state statute is 12-124A. It was passed or introduced back in 1999. This allows the elderly to stay in their homes. The person would come, fill out an application, and it's anything over that exceeds 8% of their gross income. They would defer those taxes. We would place a lien on their property. And so when it either sells or they pass on, the town would be paid in full. The interest rate on the deferred amount is 6% per year that the town would get. And we only have one person that is currently taking advantage of that program. The other program that my office does offer is the poor and unable to pay. This is, again, the state statute 12-124. And they would fill out an application and would need to go before the town, the council, for approval of an abatement of either a part or all of their taxes. And again, that would require like your IRS tax returns information and stuff like that in order to qualify for the program. Those are all my programs.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Ms. Gardner?
This is Cindy. Could I just add, I don't believe that you have anyone on that program currently. Is that correct, Melissa?
Correct. We only had one person since I've been in Groton in 3 years come before the COW for the poor and unable to pay. And he was approved by your council. But it's not, they would have to come before you every year. It's not a guaranteed abatement every year.
Very good. And did Ms. Gardner wish to speak before we have quite a few counselors that wish to speak?
Sure. Can you folks hear me tonight?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, everyone. So my office administers the circuit breaker tax relief program. It is a state program and it is open to all residents. Currently, we have 240 residents that are on the program. The average benefit is about $500 off their annual tax bill. We, in the past, all municipalities had been reimbursed from the state and they no longer OPM no longer reimburses it since 2017. For the 2019 grand list, I'd estimate it's about $123,000 revenue loss. Attorney Zapiri talked about the resident on Park Place. When you talk about income limits for this program, the married maximum amount of income for a married couple is $45,100. For a single person, it's $37,000. They're pretty low. That includes Social Security. This program is open to any resident who is 65 years or older, or a surviving spouse, or someone who is totally disabled under the Social Security program or a similar program. That is the quick summary for the elderly tax relief program that we administer. We also administer veteran benefits. There is the state program. Groton's veteran exemptions have not moved in any way. Pretty much since they were put in place by the state of Connecticut, a lot of towns, the base veterans exemption is upwards of $6,000 in assessment reduction, or $8,000. Groton's remains at about $1,000, primarily because we've seen no shift in our revaluations that triggers an increase in your veteran exemption. The basic veterans exemption in tax dollars right now to a Groton resident is about $40 off their tax bill. There are different tiers to that program. If you have a disability through the VA, you are entitled to a higher veterans exemption. There are multiple options depending on other disabilities that are awarded through the VA. And the town of Groton also voted several years ago for a local option veterans program. And the basic veteran exemption granted for that is $10,000 off your tax bill, which is about town taxes, $250 off your tax bill. The way that that program is administered is it's based on income. It is a higher income ceiling than the state program. And I'm sorry, I don't have the number of veterans at my fingertips right now for that, but it's in the hundreds. I would say it's probably maybe around 300 veterans are on that program. So we also administer a totally disabled exemption, which is required by the state of Connecticut. It's $1,000 off their assessment, which again is about $30 off their tax bill. That pretty much sums up what we administer in my office.
And Mary, this is for the veterans, the base can be up to 3,000. Is that right? From the base state law, I think it goes up to 3,000, but we're maxed on the local option, correct? I think that only allows up to the 10,000 off the assessed value.
So the state veterans exemption is like a layer cake, and
oh, you know, I just see in 16 it went up to 20. You can go up to 20, can't you? For at the max.
Well, are you saying $20,000 in assessment? If that's true, that is severe disability through the VA, and not very many people qualify for that.
Okay.
I'm thinking he might be referring to the local option, Mary. We have the 10,000.
Yeah, local option.
But it
yeah,
could,
I think
okay. So for the local option, the benefit is $10,000 off your assessment.
Right. I think in 16 they made it so you can increase the local option to 20,000.
Okay, so you're saying the state statutes were changed.
Yeah,
that
state
allows
statute allows us to go up to 20. There is some room there to move on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for the background information. We have a lot of people that wish to speak, and Councilor Zapiri, I'm going to go to the other councilors first since you already spoke on this. We have Councilor Heede, Franco, Bordelon, and Melendez. So Councilor Heede, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first time this came up, I was against it. And, despite, the human element of obviously people have a hard time paying for things, I can't support it this time around either. I feel like there's this myth that everybody wants small government, and this, since the 1980s, I think there's been a trend for the federal government to be making cuts, and then for the state government to be making cuts. And the reality is that what happens is we rely more on our property taxes. People still want their schools, they still want their roads plowed, they still want bridges, they still want senior center, and somehow we have to pay for it. And I think if you think in terms of like what a community does, we're not here to make a profit. We're here to create a community that people want to live in and that we all benefit in some fashion. So take, for example, I don't have children yet. Half of my taxes go to pay for schools, and I don't qualify for any kind of a tax discount. And I'm not asking for one. I rely on the schools to train children to grow up and become educated and be successful, because if they're successful and they have good jobs and they have good incomes, it helps with me as I age to ensure that the town can afford the services that I want to have when I'm here. But I think, there are a number of people when this first came out, you want to honor your vets, you want to honor your police, but now we have COVID-19. We want to honor our frontline employees at grocery stores. There's an unlimited number of people who could justify or who could qualify for some kind of special discount. And I feel for people who can't afford things. And that's why it's incumbent upon us not to provide not to do wasteful spending, but to make sure that we're looking for efficiencies and trying to deliver proper services, proactively managing our infrastructure, creating the kind of community that we want to live in, but not spending too much. So we need to minimize the amount of tax increases that we do and try to manage our budget as best we can. But we can't give a tax break to this person and not give it to that person. It's not fair, and it's not how our community works.
Just to mention again, you can only do what's allowed in state statute too, so we can only go so far.
I understand. I was speaking hypothetically.
I understand. I just want to make sure everyone's clear about that. We can't create anything new.
Okay. We have Councilor Franco, Bordelon, Melendez, and Bumgardner. So Councilor Franco.
Thank you. So can I go back to Ms. McGuire and ask, when you were talking about the poor and unable to pay state, what is the qualifications for that?
So we have an application that the person would fill out. They would make a petition to the council, and then they would provide documentation, like a copy of their federal tax return, if they're disabled, copy of deed, any mortgage document, any income they might have, like dividends. If they're basically on Social Security, they would provide that information. And then originally, if it's a first-time person applying, this would start at the Human Services, and they would qualify the income according to the income requirements for the first time. If it was another, if they came again to the council, then it would start at me. But
what is the income qualifications?
It's whatever, I'm not privy to that information, but it's like the state has certain income limits, kind of like before you would require, get like SNAP or stuff like that. It's that type of income.
I see. May I?
And they would also provide documentation of any insurance, their utilities, for you guys to make an educated approval or not.
Yeah, a full financial, application.
Yes.
I understand. Thank you. I was wondering what the qualifications would be, but thank you. I appreciate that. And then may I ask, are you allowed to qualify? I don't know who I should ask, but there are numerous programs And it seems like some people might qualify for multiple ones. Can you apply for all of them? Or are you only allowed to have certain, is there a criteria of what you can and can't apply for? Mary, Cindy?
I'm thinking about that. I know in some of the local options I've read, there are limits that as to, they can't get more than their taxes. I don't know if we have any taxpayers now that, I'm sure if you were a veteran and you also were eligible to receive the circuit breaker. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I can't say out black and white right now that if someone could apply for everything, because I think probably with the income limits, it would limit them. But I don't know, Mary, could you speak to that at all?
Sure. Yes, you can apply for veteran benefits and be on the circuit breaker program at the same time. The Social Services Department administers a renters program. You cannot be on the renters program and the circuit breaker program at the same time. And you might think that's funny, but we do have mobile homeowners that pay rent for their lot. And between our office and social services, we work up the numbers and figure out what program is best for them and steer them in that direction. But typically, the statutes will lay everything out as to what you can apply for and where duplication cannot be had. And just to clarify, Mr. Burt was saying earlier about the $20,000 for the veterans program, I think, John, maybe what you were referring to is when the town opted to open that local option program, the town could have chosen a $20,000 veteran benefit max, but the town at the time chose a $10,000 veteran benefit max. Is that correct?
My guess is it was only in 2016 they approved it going up from 10 to 20. So likely we approved it at the max at the time, assuming it's been in place longer than 2016.
Okay, and then I have a final question. I don't know who to ask. This might be for, I'm not sure. So do we know the numbers in our town? And maybe this came from maybe the last census. How many veterans do we have in our town? How many disabled? How many seniors? And maybe how many people who are living under the poverty line? Do we have any type of numbers that we can sort of maybe think about this as a whole?
I think that
so this is Mary speaking.
No, go ahead, Mary.
We know how many veterans we have by the DD-214s that are recorded in land records and how many veteran benefits we are applying toward the grand list, but it's not a necessarily complete list. And as far as the elderly, we only know the number of people that have come in. We do post bulletins around town hall. When someone comes to the counter and we're discussing something else, we will ask them, are you over 65? Do you own a home? We're prompting people all the time at the counter to be proactive to get them to sign up for any program that we administer in our office. But to be honest, we don't have hard and fast numbers on who's who in town. It's really the local outreach that works the best for us.
And I think that we may find that there's some people that don't want to provide card information.
Right, I can understand. But it was just like, if we knew, like if maybe 3% of our town or this many veterans and this, if we sort of had maybe how many disabled live in our community, and it just might paint a picture that I would be able to see the bigger picture a little bit better. Thank you.
I don't have any knowledge of veterans or disabled, but there is an organization, they've changed the name. It used to be Connecticut Economic Resource Center, and they would produce these town profiles. And in those profiles, you get all the demographic breakdown. So you could actually find the number of people living below the poverty line. And I think they broke it down, like how many school-aged children, all that kind of thing. So that information's out there, but I don't know how helpful that would be because I don't know if it would speak to your exact questions, but I can see if I can try to find that and forward that I use it for school sometimes. So, okay. So we have Councilors Bordelon, Melendez, and Baumgartner.
Thank you. Thank you for all the information that was presented tonight. It's nice to see this. I have a couple questions. My first one, are all these programs posted on the town website?
This is Mary speaking. Our programs are all on our webpage, yes.
Okay, perfect. And then the poor and unable to pay, when was that one last modified?
Modified. It was probably modified a couple of years ago because the state statute had changed when we updated our state statutes in 2013, but the general application overall has not changed.
Gotcha. And the name of it comes driven by the state?
By the state statute.
That the name is given from there?
Yes.
Well, I guess for me, I have trouble with the name. And the process, does it have to be that they have to come before the council under poor and unable to pay? Or is there a process in which we can maybe streamline that a little differently? If we can't change the name and it's state driven, is there a way that we can as a town be a little bit more sensitive under that? Are we mandated by the state how we have to have them come before a meeting like that?
When it was approved, they wanted them to come before council. 2 years ago, when the person did come before council, I believe Cindy could correct me, we went to the cow first. Mm-hmm. And it was off camera. The person came with his father and was there to answer any of your questions. And then his application was approved at the town council. And so, he was given, some respect that he wasn't placed on camera.
Gotcha. So is it done in can it be appropriate that we consider to do those in an executive session? Like type of format where it's not on camera and it's not, no one else is allowed in publicly at the time. Like say someone else was there to just listen to the meeting under non-COVID. I'm just once again, I'm just making sure I'm understanding the rules. Can they, I'm sorry?
That's not allowed under the reasons for an executive session in FOIA. Attorney Duggan, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's only specific listed reasons to go into an executive session and that wouldn't be allowed.
I was using that as an example, but
okay. I thought you meant can we go to executive session?
Thank you for the clarification. I guess what I'm trying to ask is when a person comes before us, can we shut the chamber down, the area, the meeting annex, so that this person is not, it's not on camera, but maybe nobody else that's not pertinent to this information is invited in at that time. They may be asked to, or does it have to be public like that?
It has to be public. If it's a public meeting, you can't shut people out.
Mm-hmm. And then the person's name is then on the record as stating under poor and unable to pay. On our when we propose Portia Bordelon is poor and unable to pay, and we as a council are about to prove that. That's how it's stated.
I'm not sure if a couple of years ago if it just came under the statute or how it was listed on the agenda.
Right. I guess can you get that? I guess I'd like some more clarification. I'm going to do some research on that. I guess what I'm asking, is there a way, I understand the states have guidelines and we can follow those to the T, but is there a way to protect citizens, especially during financial crisis and COVID, if we can't change the label, which is, I personally, and I know it's nothing we've done, I think it's awful to say, poor and unable to pay. I mean, I find it very offensive. And I guess I'm just questioning that the process. Is there any way that we can look in to see what we can do to support our community to make them, and I'm not saying that we didn't do this the last time, I'm just asking, maybe there's something we can do to help and maybe repost this. I know if it's on the webpage, maybe on the town Facebook page, maybe kind of flagging some of these a little bit more so they're out there, because a lot of people don't know about them. And some people aren't, able to find these types of resources. And another question I had was, are they posted at the senior center perhaps as well? And then my last question is, property tax, meaning car, there's veteran exemptions for car tax, right, as well?
This is Mary speaking. Yes, if you sign up for a veteran benefit, you receive it on your real estate or your car.
Right. As a former spouse of a veteran and being here, I was aware of that benefit, and it was wonderful just being a veteran and having, what could be with 2 new cars, almost $1,000, and it doesn't have anything to do with your finances. It's just for being a veteran, which is a wonderful benefit to the town. So that's great that that's in place, and it's beneficial to a lot of the veterans, especially with them moving from town to town. It helps to make sure that you don't have outstanding taxes as well, as long as you put your forms in. So do I have to make a referral to get some more information from you guys regarding the poor and unable to pay guidelines and what we can do and can't do in the town? Or how do I have to submit that?
We can get information. So you probably want to compile whatever other people want to. And Miss Melissa, did you say the town chose to have it come before the cow? Does that mean that's actually a choice and not required by law?
Yeah, it was when it was adopted back in 2001. They wanted them to come before the council.
And I just, for clarify,
in person.
Okay, sorry. To clarify, who's they? I guess I want to make sure I'm understanding. Like you mean council?
Can I just jump in here for a minute? This is Cindy.
Yes, please. Thank you. I saw your hand.
Yes, back in 2001, when it was adopted, the agreement that I guess I want to call it the agreement, or the program that was adopted. At that time, there was a finance committee in the council. Okay. And it was written so that it would report to the finance committee, because that was a smaller group at the time, and it was more private, so to speak. And we hadn't had someone that used this program for a long time. And when this taxpayer came forward, maybe a couple of years ago, I think they came to the council twice and chose not to come this year. We decided at that time, I believe that the cow would replace the term of finance committee in this agreement. So we did try very hard to make it at that time. I think we might have, I'd have to go back and look and see exactly how we do. We might have called it a special meeting, but I know that there was no one else there except the gentleman and his father and the cow.
Okay, so I guess my next question then leads me, if it's something that we've created as a town, what would be my steps? And once again, not knowing the process and asking for clarification, do I need to submit a referral so that we can visit this item to maybe change the wording now that and I respectfully think it's great that, we gave that person as much dignity and respect as we could under what was currently written under a former group of folks who wrote the decision. So, or the rules on how it was going to be handled, and we don't have that form of structure of government currently. So is it possible then that we would have to, how do we make change to that then? Do I need to make a referral to request that we revisit that, or?
That would already fall under Joe's Councilor Zapiri's referral. So it would just be one piece of what, if the council chooses, whenever they choose to pursue, it would be one of the pieces that the council could look at. You wouldn't want to be a new referral.
Well, I was just asking because this one is saying making sure that people have the taxes. I'm just saying the one that's already in place, I would like to amend the rules on that so that it's streamlined differently.
Sure. So
if this item doesn't get moved forward for whatever reason, then what would I have to do is then create something different?
Yeah, request a new referral.
Perfect. Thank you. And call it under and is there an appropriate name? What was the number for that state referral one more time?
That state
12-124.
Yes, 12-124.
12-124. Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Could I add there was one other question about the procedure here. And the reason for the people to go to the Human Services Department is their household income cannot exceed the current poverty level. And I believe that is what the Human Services Department verifies before they come to the tax office with their application.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We have Councilor Melendez, Bumgardner, and then we have second-time speakers. So Councilor Melendez.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know, because you said obviously we can only do things that were in state statute. Are we participating? Like, is it a choice thing? Like, are we participating in everything that we possibly could, or are they, once it passes state law, we must participate? So there's almost nothing we could do besides increasing to 20,000 that one. Is there anything else, or are we doing everything? I don't know if you understand.
This is Mary. Yes, I understand your question. And there are local option circuit breaker programs, and there are local option freeze programs existing under state statute that we do not participate in.
Okay.
That my office would administer.
Okay, so I guess this is sort of asking, do we want to participate in any of the other further ones? I'm assuming that this is what this referral is asking then?
That would be part of it, yes.
Okay. So I guess the only thing I would need is sort of just what those, I mean, I'm sure it'd probably take a lot of, I don't know how much work that would be, but just a sort of a list of the things that we are not participating in for the next time we discuss this. If everyone wants to go forward. But that's it for me.
Yeah, that should be easy enough. Plus, and which current programs have room in the law to increase the amounts too, I would imagine.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we have Councilor Bumgar has not spoken yet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to, rather than thinking a little more narrowly, I think it's obviously laudable to talk about tax exemptions or abatements for our seniors and veterans, and folks who have disabilities. But I would also think that if we, as a council, we agree to look at this, maybe we consider, especially as our town has confronted COVID-19, and of what tax programs are readily available to us right now in the case, we may need to deploy additional tax relief. I know we've already done so in the past, but I'd just like to kind of ask our finance team if that's something that, other towns are exploring, other forms of, short or long-term tax relief right now. And is that something maybe the town should be exploring as well?
This is Cindy. Are you asking if there are other things that we could do immediately due to COVID?
Yeah, if, in terms of tax relief, COVID related, obviously, we're, because of the pandemic, it has placed a lot of strain on families and businesses. And, I wasn't sure if maybe, folks have gotten some feedback or have seen some data that is indicating that maybe, taxpayers would benefit from, certain programs that are allowable, allowed by the state statutes, to the, powers granted to the municipality in terms of tax programs and whatnot.
Well, as you remember, we did the tax deferral, which is the only one I know of that's allowed. We're participating. Cindy, I haven't heard of any others. Have you?
No, I have not. And again, as you had stated, we're limited to whatever the statutes would allow us to do. The town can't just provide relief in its own right.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Okay, we have councilors who wish to speak a second time, but I'm going to go to the two that have not spoken yet, Councilor Aubrey and Councilor Parker, to see if they would like to speak.
I would.
Councilor Aubrey?
I think when we do a workshop on this, which I'm sure that we'll be doing in the future, there are some other options that I'd like to make people aware of. I've used them to help people in the area. I mean, I know we can't put forward a private programs, but we can probably share some that I think could be very helpful. There are some programs out there where you can take money out of your house, and that is allocated for your taxes each year, and you're not paying anything on it. So there are some other opportunities, and I think it's excellent that we do go forward. I would say that when that gentleman came to talk with him, we absolutely afforded him privacy. We were especially aware of the situation. I think he felt very comfortable to talk with us. And I'm pretty sure Cindy was there. I'm not sure who, but it went very well. There were no problems. And I know we would do the same for anybody that was to come in the future. So, but I'm looking forward to doing workshops on all three of these to help move the council forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'm not sure if Councilor Parker wanted to say anything. If not, then we have two councilors who'd like to speak again. Okay. So then Councilor Zeperi wanted to speak again.
Thank you. I thought that Councilor Borde raised some interesting points. One is the publication, the publicizing of the availability of the programs that we already have in place. I think if they were well publicized, you'd have a lot more people applying for them. And I think it would be good if we had brochures printed that outlined each and every one of the programs. And if we had them posted at the senior center and not simply require people to come up to the desk and get the word of mouth referral from whomever takes care of them at the tax assessor's desk. I'd like to get the word out that we can do something to help people who are under duress because of the property taxes that they're paying, and we ought to outline each of the programs. So my feeling is that we should do more to make known what we can do. And that's about it for that. I think that we also ought to work on the veterans exemption, because a $1,000 reduction in assessment or approximately $40 a year is not much of a tribute to the sacrifices that so many veterans have made. That's about all I have to say.
And just to mention, we actually do the local option too, so we're doing it 11,000. Actually, I thought we're actually doing 1,500 for the base, and because I think they moved it up to 1,500. I think we're doing 11,500. But I agree, yes, that we can go higher.
This is Mary Gardner, and just to add to that, Councilor Zeperi, we do have brochures. We'll look into making sure that they're stationed around town. We also used to participate in the senior fair. We would send a staff member over with our brochures and our applications, and we would be there all day trying to promote our programs. So we have tried to do some outreach, but your point is very well taken. Thank you.
How about Melissa? Does Melissa also have brochures for the program she described? And
we do have brochures. They are on our website as well, but we do not have them out in front of the counter. But I most certainly can create them and have them out on our counters, and I can also email them to the senior center and see if they can post them out in once we're open, of course. And COVID is no longer, we can ask that the senior center can have those out as well. And if there is a senior day again, I would love to participate as well as promote our program.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in. I haven't spoken on this yet. Kind of going off of the conversation that was just being had about the outreach. Human Services used to do one Friday a month. I don't know if it was the second or third Friday of the month. They did a Veterans Coffee House. and they would invite the community in, and it was just a place where the veterans could connect and Human Services could connect them with what programs were available to the community. So I'm not sure if that was something that Human Services would have raised with that population that was attending the coffee houses. Do you ladies know the answer to that?
This is Mary. I'm not aware of it, and if it comes back up again, we'd be happy to participate in any way that we can.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I'd just like to add that, you know, both the tax and the assessor's office, you know, they're very passionate about trying to get the word out to the people that come to the counter. And I've seen it in their staff. So I do think that we've raised some points, and so there's some areas that we could improve on. But I do, and I'm very appreciative of what they try to do in getting the word out to the people that do come up to the counter.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate that as well. Councilor Franco, did you wish to speak again?
Little things. I do recall also the person that came with the application for the foreign unable to pay, and I thought it was done with the utmost respect. And I do recall at that time, actually, it was Councilor Obrey who had questioned, is there a different way we can do this? And at the time we were told there was no other way. That because it's a state program and things have to be done and it has to be on the open. That's what we were told. At least that's at the time, that's what we were under the understanding. I just quickly did look at the town website for the breakdown of some things in Groton. And just as one little tidbit, it said like 14% of our community is our seniors. So if those happen to be homeowners, and we offered, I don't know what type of abatement or assistance, if we wanted to do more, that we would even be able to do. But this is 14% of our community that may qualify for something. And I don't know how that would impact us as a town either. Although I think trying to do things for people that need assistance, I mean, I think it's very important. So, I mean, and I'm just gonna throw it out there, my father is a disabled veteran, you know, 100% disabled, has been basically my whole entire life. And I understand some of these programs from growing up and hearing my mother talk about them. So I understand the challenges and how hard these things are. And I'm sure she's watching right now and by writing down some notes on maybe some questions. So if people do have questions, exactly where do they go? Do they go to the assessor's office? Do they, what departments should they go to for assistance?
This is Mary. I would say they should come to the assessor's department, because we have a pretty good protocol to boiling it down. And if it's something that we can't help them with, we pretty much know where to send them.
Okay.
So I think a good place to start is our office.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Councilor Melendez.
Yes, I just want to speak to which one of these we want to take first. I think now with more information, I think we should do this one first. And my logic being that I think relatively quickly we can have a list of our options that we have and we can make a decision. Whereas the bridge, and the town manager can correct me if I'm wrong, even if we make a decision on the bridge, is the earliest we could vote on sort of funding the bridge in our next budget year?
Well, I mean, unless you want to drain the CIP, you know, or take, you know, or do something to try to get more, or take out a fund balance, yes.
Okay, so.
But I do think the dialogue needs to start though soon with Stonington, relatively soon.
Okay, yeah, I do agree with that. So I would say that we could finish this one relatively quickly and then head on to the bridges shortly thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Melendez. Councilor Borde, you wish to speak again?
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say that, yeah, I appreciate all the efforts and the pamphlets that are there. So that is awesome to hear that they're available. Is there any process yet in which a person can apply online, and then if they have to come in with documentation to streamline it?
We typically don't, well, no, there's no process online. And I don't know what percentage of people that are over 65, are going to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. We also, to be honest, it's an income-based program, and we really have to scrutinize their income tax return. We're turning into CPAs on these programs. It's remarkable how much training my staff has to go through for the circuit breaker program. But we prefer to do everything in person.
Okay. I was just thinking.
If they can't make a trip in and they don't have a family member that can come for them, we will make a home visit.
Okay. I guess I was just looking at all the application processes. 65, I mean, I guess when you look at the younger age of the senior, a lot of them now are much more digitally advanced. And even though they would come in for the final, but maybe the initial to start, but also looking at the other ones that aren't age dependent, like veterans and stuff, maybe starting to streamline that more in a technology way. And as far as getting out the word, it would be great to post these, like all the programs that we offer on our town Facebook page, our human resource Facebook page, and start rolling those, maybe even on our another thought process, even our channel. On Fridays when I'm off, sometimes I watch the channel just to see what pops up, and I have learned a few things on there. So maybe even adding some of these programs availability, how they access them, if they're not online, that they are in paper, they have brochures to be picked up. So that would be maybe another way on top of the pamphlets to use our Facebook page and other social media ways to advertise what we have available. Also, maybe putting some of the pamphlets maybe at the library or libraries through the town and the city. I know that a lot of people that come into the area that are new kind of look towards our libraries as a place of information. So maybe we can keep a few stacks there as well to at least lead them to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, I believe, has had a chance to speak. So we've had a quick run, not a quick run through, but we've had a run through of all three of the referrals. And I guess at this point, what I would ask is, where do you want to go with this? Which one do you want to pursue next? Or do you want to pursue any of these next? So if we could I'm just going to go through, and if you guys could just tell me what would be your top priority and your second priority, please. And I will write it down. So Councilor Aubrey, what would be your top priority and your second priority?
Bridge in Mystic, meeting with Stonington.
And what would be your second priority?
Probably infrastructure.
Councilor Zepari, what would you put as your top priority?
I agree with Dr. Aubrey, with Councilor Aubrey. And I would say, as Councilor Melendez said, a discussion of the tax abatement is something that we can do very simply and just get it into our heads of what we can and cannot do. But I don't think there is an emergent consideration for any of these. I think we should get them done as quickly as we can and just prioritize them.
So what is your second priority then? If the abatement is the first, what would you prefer to see second?
Sewers.
Thank you. Councilor Franco.
I would say bridges and then tax abatements.
Thank you. Councilor Borde.
Thank you. I definitely think that two of these items probably could work simultaneously together in conjunction so that we can meet the completion at a certain time. So I think as Town Manager Burt had stated, like getting that meeting done sooner than later is something we can do in conjunction with working on clarifying and putting forward the other item for the seniors and the different application process for the different services that we provide to assist people from in need to veterans. I think the two can kind of work together. So bridges definitely, but also the other one that can be done quickly, that one can be done in conjunction with it, I think. So I would like to see kind of those two kind of run together.
So which two?
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at what we just last talked about with the
abatements?
The abatements and the bridges.
Which is your top priority?
I would say they're equal for me. And I think that we could do them simultaneously and work for completion on both.
Councilor Heede.
I'm in favor of bridges. I will pass on voting for a second. Thanks.
Councilor Bumgardner.
Bridges is my number one, followed by tax abatements.
Thank you. Councilor Parker.
Bridges and tax abatement.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. Councilor Melendez.
Tax abatements first, bridges second.
And that leaves me, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Granitoski. Bridges and abatements are the two. Okay, great. Well, thanks. That's good. So we will work on with Mr. Burt, seeing where we can go with this. What I wanted to do right now, I've had a request for a brief recess. So shall we, Mr. Burt or Attorney Duggan, do we recess first and then go into executive session, or should we go into executive session and while GMTV is doing their thing, we can take a quick break away?
Whatever, frankly, whatever the council, whatever works is fine.
Okay. So I think what I'll do is we are on to 2025-64 telecommunicator pension retiree health agreement executive session.
Madam Mayor, are we going to ask for the GMTV to come back afterwards?
Yes. Yes. 2025-64 telecommunicator pension retiree health agreement executive session. I hereby move that the members of the Town Council Committee of the Whole, along with Town Manager John Burt, Assistant Town Manager Bob Zagami, and Town Attorney Eileen Duggan, go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-202 for the purpose of discussing strategy and/or negotiations with respect to collective bargaining units. Please don't second yet. Did I miss anybody, Mr. Burt?
No.
Thank you. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Granitoski, seconded by Zepari. It is 8. All those in favor of going into executive session, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we are in executive session at 8:49, and by the time the TV is all set, we should probably be back within like 5 minutes to start the executive session. So thank Thank you. All right, thank you. Welcome back. It is 9:11 and the Council Committee of the Whole is out of executive session. And we are finishing up 2025-64. Councilor Melendez, did you wish to make a motion, sir?
Yes, I hereby move that the Town Council Committee of the Whole approve the request for funds necessary to implement the pension retiree health agreement between the town and Town of Groton and Groton Telecommunicators Association, United Electric Local 222, Connecticut Independent Labor Union Local 86 Incorporated, affiliated with United Electrical, Radio, and Machine Workers of America for the period July 1st, 2020 through July 30th, 2025. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Melendez, seconded by Aubrey. Any discussion on this motion? Councilor Heede?
I think we may need to do a correction. He said July 1st, 2020 through July 30th, but it's actually June 30th, 2025. Is that correct?
So then.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I didn't catch it either.
Should I just read it again? I
Yeah.
said July 30th.
So then the motion will read for the period July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2025, correct? Councilor Melendez and Councilor Aubrey?
Yes.
Councilor Aubrey?
No, I'm just here.
Okay. All right, so we're set on that. I don't see any hands. Okay, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the item under 2025-64, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to the end of our new business. Mr. Burt, did you want to review any of the agenda items?
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Do any councilors have other business?
I have something. Let's see. Let me pull it up on my phone. Just a reminder to the voters. It's sort of an announcement, if that's okay. And sorry, I'm not ready. I'll pass. I'll come back. Come back to me later.
Okay. There's nobody else. Oh, Councilor Borde, go ahead.
Is this the appropriate spot to ask if I want to make a referral to rules? Do I send it through the email like we do and get all the people that we need to agree, or I can just send something straight to?
I would prefer you send it in writing. That way I forward it directly with your language. That way you know exactly what you want to say, and then I can give that to the rest of the council. And I think it's better that way. Then everybody knows exactly where you're going. So.
And I just want to double clarify for the rules, do you have to have a bunch of people, like for referrals, the same process, agree to have it go, or anything can go straight to rules? I just want to double clarify.
I'm not sure what you're asking, please.
So when we send referrals, we have to have a certain number of counselors that want to push the referral forward before it's moved?
That's how our rules are right now, yes.
Okay, so it has to have, okay. All right, perfect, thank you. I'll send it there.
Certainly. Councilor Heede, are you ready?
Sure. This was an announcement from Secretary of State Denise Merrill, and it's just encouraging people to make sure to return their if they choose to vote by absentee ballots, that they can select sickness as the reason, and that they need to return it as soon as possible. There are drop boxes in front of the town offices at 45 Fort Hill Road. So just so you know, that was an announcement that was made. I just wanted to share it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Franco.
Just a quick question. If something is being sent to the Rules Committee, can people on the Rules Committee also support the referral?
That's not a me question. That's a bigger question. I'm not sure. I really don't know how that would work. And perhaps if Attorney Duggan is still here, or did she go? She left.
It's gone now.
Can we ask?
I don't think, I could double check with her, but I don't think there'd be a problem with them supporting the referral.
I don't agree.
Councilor Parker?
I'll be happy to review it for you and tell you at the next meeting.
All right, just because if we need two supporters on a referral to the Rules Committee, and 3 counselors who are on the Rules Committee are not allowed, that limits it down to 6. And it just seems, as I believe we are all part of the rules because we approve whatever comes from the rules. I'm not exactly sure how this works, and I just wanted to clarify that. And what if somebody from the Rules Committee wants to make a referral for themselves? So there's just some questions here that I was wondering if we can get some answers to.
I will tell you at the next meeting.
I appreciate that.
I would say we could perhaps ask Attorney Duggan.
I just got off the phone with Attorney Duggan. I just got her on the phone. They can support the referral.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Burt. Councilor Heede, you have well, let me go to see if anybody else wants to speak again before we go back to you, sir.
Well, this was.
Go ahead.
Just a point of clarification for Councilor Borde. I'm wondering if this is a referral to those 3 people writing the new rules, or is it a referral to standing rules? And does that make a difference?
It is the same.
That's a good question to know.
Excuse me. It is a rules committee. It is Councilor Aubrey, Councilor Parker, Councilor Baumgartner is our rules committee. So it would be referred to them.
You're all in trouble, aren't you?
All right, I see no other hands. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have my hand, one more thing.
I did not see your hand. Councilor Borderline, you have the floor.
Also, not to the rules, I wanted to I'll be sending a referral to ask if it's possible that when items are people are submitting referrals, would this be something that needs to go to rules, that we just kind of get a recap of where that referral stands? Was that something that should go to rules? For example, some people might not respond on the email. Some might speak to people directly. And sometimes with so many emails, and this is not something most people can't monitor town email all day. It is hard to kind of lose the loop of where something is, so if someone makes a referral and it gets to the number of counselors that it's needed, is there a way to just send something out and just simply, nothing really formal, just like, okay, it's move forward to the next step. You got the 2 counselors or 3, whatever the supporting number. So that way we kind of know where it's left. And also in reference to Councilor Zupiri's referrals that came through, I was in support of a lot of the items, and after talking to him about them today, it clarified a lot of it, which was great. But at the time when I did agree to your referral initially, I was agreeing to Town Manager Burt had sent something that that was linked in between the stating adding the recommendation from Councilor Aubrey about adding a line so that we know where our referrals are in the process, and kind of just so we know about them, which was a great recommendation. And that was linked with Councilor Zupiri's referral. So it was kind of hard, at a quick glance in between work and home, going on really quick without going all the way down. They were all linked together. So I'm just wondering, would we have to send a referral, or can we just make a suggestion maybe to send the referral items, so that they're individual, separate, so they're not linked like that, so you don't have to search for it. So how would you prefer that I send that?
So let me just address that before we go further with it. The reason why, it's the same reason why I just asked you to send me it in writing, okay? I don't want to be interpreting what you're asking for. I want your words to go to the rest of the council. And that holds true for all of you. If Councilor Aubrey, Councilor Heede make a referral, you need to hear their language, not my interpretation of the language. So I try to take whatever you send me and push it back out. And I usually try to take the original email and push it back out. And I ask you to respond yes or no, you wish to pursue this. I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible. That way there isn't a lot of gray area, because it should be your voice right? Asking for the referral, not my voice. So I much prefer, and I think it's the best way to do this, is to take whatever you send in writing and then I can distribute it to the rest of the council. The rest of the council then can go back to you directly and ask questions to you and then reply, yes, we want to move ahead. No, we don't want to move ahead. So that's the reasoning behind what I ask of you. And until there's a rule change, otherwise, I'm going to keep doing it that way and keep asking you for that, because I think it's the best way to ensure that your idea gets to the rest of the council properly.
Thank you. I guess I wasn't really disputing that process of it, and I respect the way that you do it because it is great to have our own voice go forward. The part that I was just asking is like when Joe Superior's came forward, it was linked with something else in it. So is there a way that we could not have them come with multiple items in there? Is that a possibility?
So the referral went to the manager first. And in order for me to do that and have his original, I needed to forward that email. And I specifically said when I wrote in it, please see the referral from Councilor Zepari. So, there has to be, you reading it as well and not just glancing quickly at a subject line.
Right, and that's where, all right, so should I send it to rules or just, is it something that we can consider just so that we can separate, there was a section where John was asking for everyone's approval to Leanne's recommendation along with Joe Superior's referrals all in one email. And it is a little confusing because when you say yes to it, it can link all with it. So I was just wondering, just nicely asking if it was possible of a way of just maybe separating the two so it is more streamlined.
So again, if you'd like a rule change, you should make a request for a referral, send it in writing to me. I will disseminate that to the rest of the council. If you get support, then that would go to the appropriate committee, whether it be rules or COW or public safety.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I guess maybe, and I'll send the email because I guess I'm not stating it correctly and I apologize. I guess I wasn't really asking for a rule change, more of just not linking the emails with multiple subjects in one. And maybe that's what I was trying to convey and maybe I didn't do that correctly and I apologize. I was just asking that, once again, Town Manager Burt had sent a recommendation from Leanne Obrey and we all agreed upon it. And then on top of that had Councilor Zepari's referral and it was linked all in one email. And so I'm not really looking for a rule change and I actually respect the way that you do the referral. I was just asking more if we can just send them individually. That was my only thought process. But if I have to send a referral, I will. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved by
Second.
Obrey. Is there a second?
Second, Bumgardner.
Seconded by Bumgardner. We are at 8 councilors, by the way. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are adjourned at 9:24. Good evening, everybody. Be well.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good.
Good night, everybody.